Well, there's a ton of value. You may be surprised, but as we wind down the NBA restart in the bubble and gear up for the NBA playoffs themselves, still a couple of games today worth note, including maybe some value right away as the Washington Wizards, who have been miserable in the bubble, I'm sure, the entire time, will take on a Boston Celtics team that is already entrenched in the 3 spot. And despite a first-round matchup with the Sixers, they should cruise by. I can't imagine that anybody of note will play, if at all, let alone past the first quarter. That's why it's such a tight number here. And to be fair to Washington, as lack of talent as they may have on that basketball team, the reality is that they have been trying, and there has been effort there, and you're going to see that effort play out. It's only a 2-point line here. Washington, of course, despite the situation with Boston not really going to play anybody, Washington still getting the 2 points. And right now the return at BetMGM is even money. So at +2 with the 100 even money return, ride with the Washington Wizards today, +2 against the Celtics team that really doesn't need much at all. And speaking of which, you can look at a Jazz Spurs game going on now where San Antonio still fighting for some sense of relevance in that match, if you will, of the 8 versus anyone that qualifies and kind of figuring out if it's going to be Portland or where. So San Antonio still with something to play for. The problem, of course, Utah, not really much at all. I actually like the under. The number here is 230.5. And if you go under, you'll get a -105 return at Fox Bet. I think that's the safer play right now, simply because while San Antonio will definitely try and push it and try and score enough to create a gap to where they can win this basketball game, no matter who's there on the floor for Utah, I just don't know if Utah has the bodies, the shooters to keep up. Definitely expect San Antonio to put up some points, but at a 230.5 total there, could easily see Utah hovering around 100, 104 points. It's not going to be enough. San Antonio will do the heavy lifting, but unlike a Phoenix game, we'll get to them in a second, unlike a Suns game where you know that they can take care of everything, the Spurs, not enough firepower to hit that over, not on their own, but 80% on their own. So that's why we roll under 230.5. And again, the best return at Fox Bet, -105. Now, as far as the Suns are concerned, this is a big one against the Dallas Mavericks. They're undefeated. They're laying 8.5 points. And as tempted as I am to dip my hands into that pool of value, it's a risk, of course. And just to be fair, it's even money. The -8.5, the best place to do that, if in fact you want to, would be at PointsBet for an even money return. But I'm actually taking this total, and we're going to push it over. Phoenix can do the majority of work on their own. Dallas, it doesn't matter who's out there. They're still going to push a tempo. They'll easily fall into the trap of the Suns right now at 223.5. It's kind of low with the anticipation, of course, that it's going to play out. Now, you're going to have to move something here. And the reality is that the value is not going to be great. So the best value, and I'll give you this as the straight up pick, I would lean towards playing this over, if you can afford it, at probably a 3-1 return. The best value on the board is still the Suns -8.5. So not to be too confusing there, I would love, if you have the money and opportunity, for you to take the over, knowing it's such a low number, especially at 888 Sports, where you're going to get it at -315, and that's probably the lowest you would get there. But you can move around, and you can find a different total that might fit a better number. For example, I have no problem stretching that by 10 points and going over the 233.5. And again, at 888, you're going to get a -122, the same you would get at Sugar House. So that would be the number that I would feel comfortable pushing. If you're confident that, A, you have the means to lay down that -315 return, or you think in some crazy, bizarre universe this thing will hit under the 223.5, you're going to get a hell of a return back there. The play is either the line at -8.5 to the even money return, or bump it up, take that total at 233.5, still go over at a -122 return. For Oddschecker, I'm Eytan Shander. Enjoy the games.